to you. What would be most helpful today?
So I made a Google Doc that outlines some things. That I'm happy to put in the chat, but I can also just tell you a little bit about where I'm at. So I think most helpful would be figuring out how to word my niche. Like I think I know who my niche is. My brain just can't it can't word.
Yeah.
Like it can't quite figure out it's how to word it. So I can talk expertly about it when I network. And so that would be my second, like, just ideas about networking. And then if we have time, like some marketing strategy. I'm working with Jen Fredette, who has helped me
She's
a
great.
ton. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. And she also speaks so highly of you, by the way.
Oh, yay.
So she was like, go talk to Allison. Um, uh, but basically what I've also figured out is I really need to slash also want to, it's kind of both, need to rebrand. Because my old brand is like it that person, that human is still amazing, and that is not like that's not how I want to walk
Yeah.
anymore.
Got it. Yeah. Well, let's start with getting the words around your ideal client so that because that's going to unlock everything else. So let's start there. Tell me, like, and this can be messy and disparate, all of that is fine, but just like throw information at me about who you really want to work with.
Yes. So kind of the statements I have right now are working with strategy savvy, emotionally avoidant businessmen. Not that they have to be businessmen, that's just where I see it a lot.
Hmm.
So I'll read you some copy that I wrote for Jen this week about this. It says, you're pretty confident you're a good guy, but all your exes would say you're a narcissist. Spoiler, narcissists never worry about fucking up the way you do. So let's be clear, you're not a narcissist. You're just confused as fuck. And I know you've got a heart under all your bullshit. I think you do too. And that's kind of what I specialize in is
Okay.
bullshit calling that brings you clarity without destroying you. Um,
Okay.
and so, yeah, it's I'm so tired of working with people pleasing women, and this feels like a more like much more. They just cannot handle my directness, and I'm really
Mm.
fucking direct. And I'm like, no, this is not my niche anymore because
Ah,
I've grown to be less direct or
love
more
it.
direct. Sorry. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. When you want to show up as yourself, like you want to be able to use all the tools that you have, and being direct is one of them. It's not easy for all of us, and I think a lot of us who are not as good at being direct often like the people pleasing women, So like you want to call people on their shit. I get that. Um, so let's work with and so are these like you mentioned businessmen, are these business owners? Are these C-suite execs? Are these blue collar, put your head down and do your work and don't complain kind of guys? Like who are we talking about?
So I'm basing it loosely on some folks I've worked with. So they're not always business owners, but they're in like a very extroverted business that makes them a
Mhm.
lot of money. So I could totally
Mhm.
see like C-suite guys. The guy like so I like to attach like celebrities sometimes to my ICA. So my ICA ideal client would kind of
Avatar,
remind me
yeah.
a little bit of John Mulaney. Like
Okay.
or a version of him. Like he's very like you would think he is very well put together, but if you take even a small peek into his relational life, like
Yeah.
like
Are you
there's
wanting the substance abuse that goes with John Mulaney or no?
not that hardcore.
Okay. Okay.
Like I do love working with addiction, but it's like, and I think I'm really good at it. But as like a solo practitioner, there's only so much I can do. So if someone
Hmm.
is like, because a lot of my clients do use alcohol and pot like on a regular basis. Totally fine with that. But when it like starts going to like, oh my gosh, like you need like inpatient or like
Hmm.
something like that. I'm not sure I would want to work with someone who has like just come out from like
Right.
inpatient care, for example. So yes, and I don't want to be like, I do not want that to be my first advertising point. Also, because the
Hmm.
guys I've worked with, that's not what they're like that they're probably minimizing it a good definitely like not why they're connecting with me like per se.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm in a mastermind with a bunch of business owners, and there are a lot of guys who are on the other side of this. So they're guys who went into therapy like that and have come out or are still in and are like in touch with their feelings and like having really beautiful open conversation. So they've like done a lot of the work, but they did not start out there. Like they weren't.
Yes, those
Yeah.
are the people I want to see because those are
Yeah.
the people that excite me the most. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, I can see what you're doing. Let me help you out. Like life
Yeah.
does not have to be this painful. Um,
Yeah. So I'm thinking like, I mean, your person has a very extroverted role, right? So like sales, these kinds of things, probably.
yes,
Um, he's probably also ties a lot of his self-worth to his success, his financial success.
yes.
Um, I'm trying to imagine the before of all of these really wonderful men that I now know. The before version of them that I probably would hear about in my sessions with the women who would have dated them. Um, okay, here's my question. What is it that's going on in their life that makes them be like, I need help?
So I've been thinking about that a lot because that's like I think also for networking. I'm like, who do these guys see? I'm like, because men are not great at seeking out like their own medical care. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
the stats are like really dismal. Not that that's
Yeah.
something I would necessarily share with them out the gate, but like, it's like an like secret handshake inside. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so dismal. Um, like sorry, remind me of your question again, because now my brain is super excited. What was your question?
Yeah. Well, what happened that made them, or what's going on
Oh,
that's making them seek
okay.
care?
Yeah. So, some like from person like people I've worked with like have come there because their partner's like, you're a mess.
Hmm.
Like which is okay. But that external motivation can sometimes get in the way,
Hmm.
depending. So I'm like, I've been trying to think, I'm like, what the hell would like get a for all intents and purposes, like a straight white man to
Hmm.
go to therapy. Like what would be so bad? And I keep landing on, well, like they can't keep relationships or the relationship they have is really like terrible.
Hmm.
So in that case, their partners might be referring to them or like referring them to therapy. Um, to me, these are also the guys that they might be in couples counseling, but not necessarily. Like I'm not sure they'd even be bought in enough to do like to try that. Yeah, I'm waffling on that a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, they might go see psychiatrists. It was my thought too, like because
Hmm.
that's like a more manageable, slightly less stigmatized. I mean, not really, but kind of.
Right.
And it also means they don't have to necessarily do their own internal work to go
Right. And
see
they
a
can say like,
psychiatrist.
it's just this like biological problem,
Right,
you know?
exactly.
Hmm.
So that's like kind of what comes up. My brain, I'm sure, will have other ideas, but that's what's there right now.
Got it. Got it. But I'm hearing it's most likely kind of a twisted arm situation within a relationship or realizing like at some point they do want to settle down and like they've either been divorced a couple times or had huge major breakups or just there's something romantically that is not working for them or relationally that's not working.
Yes, absolutely.
Are
100%.
they pretty charismatic?
Yes, like and not and it's weird, right? Like I was looking back through some of my intakes with guys I've worked with and like what they said their strengths was, like also because I was like my brain was just curious. But I was like, no, this could actually be helpful too. And the one I'm thinking of, friendly, open, salesmanship, compromising, which also if he was here, I would tell him that was not one of his strengths. I'm like, that's getting you in trouble. But no, like, so yeah, I would say yes. But they're also like, Jen and I had talked some about how we potentially think my ICA might like actually think they're kind of a narcissist, like, or might be afraid of that, but they're totally
Mhm.
not. Like the real deal is so much different. Like they're not as
Right.
bad off as they think they are.
Right. And real narcissists aren't worried about being narcissists. So,
Capable of that, but that word gets like I've been on a bender with that word this week because I'm kind of upset about like how it gets thrown around so much and
Mhm.
like doesn't really people it anyway, that's my it's
Yeah.
been helping me ICA though, so good news with that.
Yeah, I think the tricky part is if you're talking about people who wonder if they're narcissists, you might end up actually getting some, or people who are actually like more on the spectrum of narcissism than you want. So I think we're going to have to create, I think about them like the bumpers on a bowling alley. Like we might want to create some bumpers that keep them from like going the wrong way, like some things that opt these people out. Um, like some of the more tender parts that your guy is able to acknowledge that maybe somebody crossing the line of narcissism that you don't want to work with wouldn't be able to acknowledge.
Yes, I'm all for bumpers. I don't want to actually work with real narcissists. I mean, one, I'm not sure if anyone really can, but two, like I especially do not want to.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think leaning into like what you wrote, some of your exes would maybe call you a narcissist and um maybe going a little harder on like the worry they have about that, like describing maybe somebody called them that once and they have gone through all of their relationships in their mind to find evidence for or against being a narcissist. Like some of the mental or emotional work they're doing around it because it's so abhorrent to them. Um, maybe making like, so your people are likely very confident in certain spaces.
Yes, I would say they're very confident, but they don't have courage. Um,
Oh, I love that distinction.
and it's a
They
great fit.
understand that before you explain that to them, if you were to say that exact phrase to somebody who has never talked to you, would they see themselves in that?
I I think I would have to define what courage and confidence are. And if
Mhm.
I did that, they might like it might ding something.
Mhm.
Um like yeah, because they are oh my God, they are like some of the most like confident people I've ever met, but like they can't trust anyone.
Right.
Like they can't be like for a lot of reasons. So if I explain the difference between confidence and courage, I think potentially it could land. I think like the statement in and of itself, they might just be like,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I think you could say like you're confident in so many areas and maybe bullet point those out. And yet these things scare the shit out of you and have bullet points for those things, those more tender things.
Yes, no, that's a great. I love that. Oh, good compare and contrast. Yeah, and I have like a list of what scares the shit out of them, so that will work really well.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I think when I'm thinking of your guy, like he doesn't want to, like bullet points work for him. You know what I mean? Like he
Yes.
doesn't want to read a poem about it.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
and I don't want to write a poem about it, so
right,
that
right.
that's like perfect.
Okay. So as I'm like, it's all coalescing in my head. It's hard when they're not really there because they want to be. Like they're there to pacify a partner or they're there to, um, so I'm trying to think of like how to spin that.
Yeah, me too. Me too, because yeah, like the folks I have worked with, it's also kind of easier to work with people who are single. Not that I can't work with people who are in partnerships, but I also have no, I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not have time to like go through training and credentialing of couples therapy right now, like,
Right.
or the money. So, but maybe one day. Um, and so I've been kind of chewing on that too. And like the only like the best I've come up with so far is like again thinking about who else they might go to, like who's kind of either in our field or field adjacent, and like psychiatrists maybe like wellness, like massage or stuff like that. But like also
Mhm.
me is like, nah, they don't, I'm not 110%. Well, I guess it depends on like which version of this like particular character, but I'm also like, I'm not sure how seriously they take their health.
Mhm.
Um, like, okay, like overall. And so
Mhm.
that's something for me to consider because I'm like, no, that'd be good to know if they take their health and wellness
Right.
seriously or not.
What stresses them out on a weekly basis?
Um, if they are if they're with a partner, um, they're like always thinking about like, oh my gosh, what am I going to fuck up next? Like, I already have fucked up. Like, it's interesting too, in my experience, a lot of the guys I've worked with, the partners they pick are actually pretty toxic.
Mhm.
Like, but they don't recognize it. Um,
Right.
uh, so if they're partnered, that's like kind of all they're stressing out about. If they're not partnered, um, that's a great question. Like I know this, but my like because I have gone over this way too many times to not know this. If they're not partnered, um, then that's it. Family of origin stuff.
Mm.
They wouldn't name it. Like that's not why any of these guys come to think. Like at least right, like at least, or they wouldn't say family of origin. That's just therapy speak. But like typically they have really dysfunctional families that are still currently dysfunctional. So
Mhm.
parents are using substances or they're often like usually alcohol or they're like divorced, like they don't know how to set boundaries with it. So it's like anxious about going to see mom, knowing she's going to be a shithead, but knowing there's also like nothing you can do about it.
Mhm.
Like so I would say that, and or potentially like I wouldn't say totally existential crisisy, but something bordering on that of maybe those like fleeting moments where they're like out with their buddies, they're playing golf, drinking, right, whatever it is they're doing, and they're like, is this it? like, like,
Mhm.
is this really it? Like, and that's not counting the 99% of the time where they're like, uh, you know, what's the word? Not self-compassion. That's what they need to learn. What is the opposite of that? Self-indulgence.
Mm. Mhm.
Which they're really good at. I don't know if they would name it that way, and I've got ideas about how they would speak about that, but
Yeah.
um, it's just like yes, it's this. There's this. I would almost say like youthfulness,
Mhm.
and not like in a bad, like not in a bad way, but it's like they were never taught how to really step into their roles. They don't really know what their role is. And if you're confused about your role, you can't step into it to begin with.
Right. And I wonder copy wise if it could be something like, if you're being really honest, you've been pretty self-indulgent in a lot of ways, and it still doesn't make you any happier.
Yeah. Boy, do my people need to hear that. um, and as I've been doing the like know your niche or niche, I don't
Either
know how
way.
to pronounce it. I'm like, who knows what the real meaning of life is anymore? I don't know. Um, that yeah, my guys definitely need to hear that, and it definitely shows up in their spending habits. Again, that's not like
Mm.
something I don't think they would bring, but I mean the guys I've worked with, like I mean they can afford, like easily afford my private pay fee, like they love traveling, like golf is a big
Mhm.
one, right? Like these really social and experiential um activities that like might get some dopamine going, but like it
Mhm.
doesn't last. So that's actually, I'm remembering, I'm like, oh, no, I could maybe give some concrete examples of that. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of like, it's funny because you seem so very different from your ideal client. Like there just seems to be, I don't know, just an intuitive difference from my perspective, that I'm and so often our niches are ourselves at a different time in life. And so I keep trying to like pull parts of you into the niche. And I'm like, no, 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 that's not, that's not him. Um, so I'm thinking about this niche that so many people have with women of like everything looks great on the outside, but inside, like you mentioned this earlier, like inside you're crumbling. And I think there's like this piece of him that can acknowledge like he's likable, he's charismatic, and underneath all that, he often feels like a piece of shit.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very true, and like also in my experience, and also, oh, sorry, you're gonna hear the cat scratching at the door. Maybe she's woken up from her
That's
nap.
okay.
Um, the that he, gosh, it was some line I watched in some movie. Anyway, the bottom line was about like, it's like you, oh, it was The Holiday, which that movie. Oh my gosh, I'd never seen it, and it was so. I had problems with it, but I also really loved it. But
Yeah.
the Jude Law was talking about like it just seems to be that like I hurt women by being myself.
Mm,
Um, and now my guys do not cry as much as Jude Law. Jude Law in that movie has somehow like created this. I don't know how they did it. I'm like, I kind of want to talk to the writers of this now. I'm like, who did you, anyway? But like, I think that's like, there's a version of that in my
yeah.
ICA. You might not acknowledge it very much. You might not even know that's what it is, but that core, sorry, I've got Jen Fredette speak in my mind because we're working on so much of this, but that core, like, how do I keep, why do I keep hurting people? I'm just being myself. I don't understand. Like,
Yeah. So I wonder if it's like you work with guys who feel like deep down they're good guys, but they keep hurting people and they don't understand why.
yes, yes. And I guess the other, I'm smiling thinking about the other part too, is like, yes, they actually are doing some damage. But like no one's willing to be kind to them about that. Like not
Mhm.
nice. They will be nice
Right.
all day, but like, like, and I would never on, I don't think on my website mention anything about the patriarchy or all that stuff because I think my guys tend to be more
Yeah.
conservative.
Yeah.
And also they won't know what that means. And I'm still trying to figure out what that means. So I'm like, no, no, none of that. But that like it's like, yeah, you go like especially and I'm on a tear with this too. Also, I think something because of my internal work, but like the amount that these guys have been hurt by women and
Mm.
marginalized by women. And so they think feminism is like being shut down, like
Mhm.
by trying to express their opinions. Now, they do have some, again, they are doing damage, but no one's being willing to like hang with them in that, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the quick and dirty, like niche statement is like men who are good people, but keep hurting others. And then there's an opportunity to like explain that. Like you're not talking about, antisocial guys. You're not talking about, you have the opportunity, or maybe you say like instead of good people, they're like likable, affable guys who keep hurting people they care about.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Because then it lends some of the goodness, it like defines some of the goodness in them while also creating some accountability or culpability maybe that bothers them, that gets under their skin because they keep either pushing people to dump them or being the dumper. They keep um, putting other people last in their own drive for success or whatever first because it's tied to their identity, not because they're jerks.
Right.
So,
Yes, and that is something that, gosh, I mean, I just wish I could, like, I would love to talk to people about that all day, about like how these guys are not idiots and they're not
mhm.
jerks. They just look like jerks and they look like idiots because
Yeah,
they're really confused. Need some help.
yeah, yeah. It's like not a willful insensitivity. It's like an ignorant insensitivity.
right. I'm no, I'll let you out in 5 minutes. She's very cool. Yes, and I think there is such a difference because I think with ignorant sensitivity, there's still common heart. And you can't really get that with like someone who's like like totally maybe like you cannot get that with a narcissist, that's for sure.
Right,
I'm not
right.
sure they have them parts. That's probably debatable, but um, yeah, yeah,
So then
that
when we
common.
think about like who they go to, I imagine like these might be the guys who are getting massages every week because they are stressed, they are tense, and they're probably chalking it up to like a golfing injury or something like that. And so it's probably sports massage. It's probably something a lot more like, I don't know, masculine or something like that, as opposed to like the floaty, airy, like spa massage that I might prefer,
Right.
you know?
That makes so much sense because I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, they probably do, but I'm like, I just cannot see them going to like a traditional massage therapist because it's too like woo. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, among other things, it's too woo, it's too feminine. Like, take your
Hmm.
pick. Like, it's too everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So going towards like the things that are traditionally masculine in our culture, they're probably there. Like I'm imagining like these are the grown-up frat guys, right?
Yes. Yes. More or less. I'm smiling to myself. I'm like, they're not total airheads. Like, sorry, because I think of frat guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys. Like, I would never be able to work with like an actual, like someone who is in that actual state, like a college student or something like that. I'm like, no, too much. Like, you have not reached like a point one where you can afford my services, but two, like, you're too, like, life is not impacting you in a real way relationally yet, where
Mm-hmm.
we can do that work.
Right, right.
But yeah, no, like sportsman's, that's such a good, like, I would not have thought of that. I'm like, yes, that is that one of the answers I've been like looking for. That is wonderful.
And the tough part is, like, I think about like a sports massage therapist. There's a risk they're taking and saying, I think therapy might be helpful for you, right? Because there's that stigma around therapy for this group. So I think of
Yes.
it kind of almost like if there was like an executive coaching lens of like you can perform better if you get this junk out of your way. Like there's all this stuff you haven't talked about. And this is what reminds me of all my mastermind guys. It's like most of them got into therapy more because they wanted to perform better. And so it might be one of those like, I mean, the truth is they will perform better. We all perform better when we have, when we're through the hard parts of clearing out our own stuff. Um, so I think coming like you could kind of insinuate like, look, we all know, everybody knows this, that hard things happen, that parents are always what we want or need them to be, that we repeat patterns. Like we all know this, and how that's impacting you at work. Maybe you're working harder than you actually need to get the same results. Maybe you're trying to think of, I keep coming back to these guys that I love so much. So like all the guys that I know that fit this bill are all still trying to impress their dads.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Yes, like, or yeah, yeah. Oh, that's something I would work with them on and be like,
Yeah.
is this realistic? Like, also given the generational differences. And anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm excited hearing about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have another call I have to hop on, but I hope that that gives you a good like jumping off point. And if you're in our Facebook community, then like post anything in there and I'll hop in and like we can go from here. So,
Perfect. That sounds
yay.
awesome. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, it was great to meet you.
Great to, ooh, great
Oh,
to meet you
hi,
too.
Kat. All right. Bye.